The explosion ripped through the night before the sound even registered. I jerked the wheel hard, tires shrieking as a fireball erupted ahead, a luxury sedan flipping end over end down the empty downtown street, trailing sparks and twisted metal like a dying comet. The impact shook my car windows. Glass shattered. Steel screamed. For one suspended heartbeat, I sat frozen, knuckles white on the steering wheel, watching the vehicle slam onto its roof and erupt into flames that licked 30 feet into the black sky. Then instinct kicked in, burning through the shock. I threw open my door and ran. My boots pounded wet pavement as I sprinted toward the inferno, heat already blistering across my face. The car, some European luxury model that probably cost more than I'd earn in 5 years, was a twisted wreck, driver's side crushed against the concrete barrier, flames devouring everything. Someone's in there. Someone's dying in there. My phone was out, fingers shaking as I dialed 911, voice cracking as I shouted the intersection. Maple and 3rd. Car fire. Driver trapped. I dropped the phone on the curb, not waiting for a response. Emergency services were 10 minutes out minimum. This man didn't have 10 minutes. I grabbed my jacket, wrapping it around my hands as I approached the wreck. The heat was a physical wall, pushing back, warning me to stop. Smoke filled my lungs, acrid and choking. I squinted through the orange glare and saw him, slumped against the steering wheel, face obscured by shadows and flames creeping along the dashboard toward him like hungry predators. "Hey!" I screamed, voice raw. "Can you hear me? Stay with me." No response. Just the roar of fire and the groan of buckling metal. The driver's side door was mangled shut, crushed like a soda can. I ran to the passenger side, yanking at the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. I kicked at the window once, twice. My boot bounced off the reinforced glass. The flames were spreading faster now, consuming the interior. The fuel tank could blow any second. Move, Avis. Think. I spotted a chunk of concrete debris from the barrier. Without hesitation, I grabbed it and hurled it through the passenger window. The glass spiderwebbed, then shattered. I reached through the jagged opening, unlocking the door from inside, ignoring the cuts slicing my forearm. Blood mixed with smoke residue on my skin. I wrenched the door open and crawled inside, the heat inside the car unbearable, like crawling into an oven. Flames danced across the dashboard, melting plastic dripping onto my hands. The man was unconscious, slumped forward, blood trickling from a gash on his temple. His expensive suit was singed, gold chain glinting at his throat even through the smoke. I grabbed his shoulder, pulling him back. He didn't budge. Seatbelt. Still locked. My fingers fumbled for the release, but the mechanism was warped from the impact. The car groaned, settling lower as the fire ate through the undercarriage. A tire exploded with a sound like a gunshot. Panic clawed at my throat. I yanked a piece of sharp metal from the mangled console and sawed at the seatbelt fabric. The material frayed, then snapped. The man's full weight collapsed onto me, and I nearly went down. He was solid, heavy with muscle, and completely dead weight. I hooked both arms under his shoulders and dragged him backward through the passenger door, my legs screaming as I pulled us both out onto the street. We hit the pavement hard. I rolled him away from the car, muscles burning, lungs searing with every breath of smoke-filled air. 20 feet. 30. Just as I collapsed beside him, the fuel tank ignited with a deafening boom that threw a wave of heat across the street and sent debris raining down around us. I lay on my back for a second, chest heaving, staring up at the smoke-stained sky. My ears rang. Everything hurt, but we were clear. We were alive. Forcing myself up onto my knees, I turned to look at the man I'd just dragged from hell. The streetlight overhead cast harsh shadows across his face, sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened with stubble, mid-30s maybe. Even unconscious and covered in soot and blood, there was something commanding about him, something that whispered danger in a way I knew too well. His clothes were expensive, his watch probably worth more than my rent. The tattoo peeking from under his torn collar, a serpent coiled around a crown, made my stomach drop. I'd seen that mark before. Years ago. In a world I'd fought to escape. I pressed my fingers to his neck, feeling for a pulse. Faint, thready, but there. His chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. Blood seeped from the head wound, and his breathing rattled. I tilted his head back, clearing his airway, checking for obstructions. "Come on," I muttered, leaning close. "Don't you die on me. Not after I just torched my hands pulling you out." His eyelids fluttered. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Red and blue lights flickered at the end of the street. Help was coming. But as I knelt there in the smoke and shattered glass, keeping pressure on his bleeding temple with my torn jacket, something cold settled in my gut. This wasn't just a car accident. The way the car had flipped, the explosion, too controlled, too deliberate. And that tattoo? This man was someone. Someone important. Someone dangerous. I'd just saved the life of someone the city's underworld wanted dead. As the paramedics swarmed around us and loaded him onto a stretcher, as the police cordoned off the scene and asked me questions I could barely answer through my smoke-damaged throat, one thought kept circling through my mind. I knew better. I knew better than to get involved, better than to play hero, better than to let anyone from that world get close to me again. Because this wasn't my first brush with the city's underworld. It was just the first time in 5 years I'd willingly stepped back into its orbit. My name is Avis Lovato, and I used to run with people who wore that same serpent crown. The paramedics worked fast, efficient hands checking vitals, securing an oxygen mask, prepping him for transport. I stood back, arms wrapped around myself, watching the organized chaos while a cop asked me the same questions 3 different ways. What did I see? How did it happen? Did I notice anyone else around? I answered on autopilot, my voice hoarse from smoke. No, I didn't see how it started. Yes, I pulled him out. No, I don't know who he is. That last part was a lie. The serpent crown tattoo was burned into my mind. Nam, you should get checked out too. A young paramedic said, gesturing to my bleeding hands and the burns on my forearms. You're in shock. Let us. I'm fine. The words came out harsher than I meant. I softened my tone. Really? Just some cuts. I'll clean them up at home. Behind him, on the stretcher, the man's eyes snapped open. He thrashed violently, nearly ripping the oxygen mask off, his hand shooting out to grab the paramedic's wrist with surprising strength for someone who'd just been unconscious. His voice was rough gravel, dangerous even in weakness. Where am I? Sir, you need to calm down. You were in an accident. Not an accident. His dark eyes swept the scene, the burning wreck, the police, the gathering crowd, before landing on me. They narrowed, assessing, calculating. Even half dead, he looked like a predator taking stock of the food chain. The brake line. They cut the brake line. The paramedics exchanged glances. One of them, an older guy with silver at his temples, went pale. Jesus. You're Joseph Lantz. The name dropped like a stone into water, ripples spreading through everyone in earshot. The cops straightened. The paramedics moved with renewed urgency. Even the firefighters still hosing down the wreck shot looks over their shoulders. Joseph Lantz. The Joseph Lantz. Everyone in the city knew that name, even if they pretended not to. He ran half the underground operations from the docks to downtown, commanded loyalty with an iron fist, and had a reputation for making problems disappear. Permanently. My stomach twisted. I'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. This wasn't just someone connected to the life I'd left. This was the life, walking and breathing and looking right at me. You. Joseph's gaze locked onto mine, intense and unwavering. You pulled me out. It wasn't a question. I nodded anyway, throat tight. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. What's your name? Avis. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Stupid. I should have lied. Should have walked away the second the paramedics arrived. Avis. He repeated it like he was filing it away for later. I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything. I stepped back, every instinct screaming at me to run. Anyone would have done the same.
No.
His voice was certain, final. They wouldn't have. The paramedics were loading him into the ambulance now, but his eyes never left mine, dark and unreadable. I don't forget debts, Avis. And I don't forget faces. It sounded like a promise. Or a threat. Maybe both. I needed to leave. Needed to get in my car and drive away and forget this whole night ever happened. My feet started moving, carrying me back toward where I'd abandoned my car, door still hanging open, engine still running. But something made me glance back. Maybe guilt, maybe morbid curiosity, maybe the part of me that never fully escaped the underworld's gravity. That's when I saw them. 3 men across the street, half hidden in the shadows between buildings. Watching. Not cops, not civilians rubbernecking the accident scene. These men stood too still, too focused, their attention laser-fixed on the ambulance. On Joseph. One of them lifted something to his ear. A phone. His lips moved. Then, as if choreographed, all 3 melted backward into the darkness and vanished. My blood turned to ice. They'd been watching, waiting to see if their hit had worked, and now they knew it hadn't, and they knew someone had saved him. The ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing, and I stood frozen on the empty street, smoke still drifting through the air, a terrible certainty settling over me like ash. I hadn't just saved Joseph Lantz's life. I'd just painted a target on my own back. I didn't go home that night. Couldn't. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city streets, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles ached, watching my rearview mirror for cars that followed too long, shadows that moved wrong. The Serpent Crown. Joseph Lantz. Those men in the darkness. It was happening again. After 5 years of keeping my head down, working double shifts at the diner, living clean and quiet and invisible, it was all unraveling because I'd made the mistake of being decent. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring out, but it started again immediately. On the 3rd call, I answered. Avis Lovato. The voice was unfamiliar, professional. Mr. Lantz would like to see you. St. Mary's Hospital, private wing, 6th floor. I don't think, he insists. And Mr. Lantz doesn't make requests twice. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, I was standing outside a hospital room guarded by 2 men in expensive suits with bulges under their jackets that definitely weren't phones. They patted me down, thoroughly, impersonally, before letting me through. Joseph sat propped up in bed, bandaged but alert, eyes sharp despite the 4 drip in his arm. Without the smoke and blood, I could see him clearly now, handsome in a brutal way, the kind of face that demanded attention and obedience in equal measure. You came. He sounded surprised. You didn't really give me a choice. I stayed near the door, arms crossed. What do you want? To thank you properly. And to warn you. He gestured to the chair beside his bed. Sit. Please. I didn't move. Warn me about what? The men who try to kill me tonight won't stop because they failed once. And they saw you pull me out. That makes you a liability. A witness. His jaw tightened. Or leverage. My stomach dropped, but I forced my voice steady. Then I'll disappear. Change cities, lay low. I've done it before. Something flickered in his eyes. Have you? The question hung heavy. He knew. Somehow he already knew. Avis Lovato, he continued, voice thoughtful. Used to run with the Cordova crew 5 years ago. Enforcer's daughter. You were good too, smart, ruthless when you needed to be. Then your father got killed in a territory dispute and you vanished. He tilted his head. I always wondered where you went. My blood ran cold. That's not me anymore. Isn't it? His gaze was penetrating. You ran into a burning car tonight without hesitation. That's not civilian instinct, Avis. That's training. That's someone who's seen violence and learned to move through it. I wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in my throat. He was right. Normal people froze. Normal people waited for help. But I'd been raised in a world where hesitation got you killed, where you acted first and processed trauma later. I left that life. I said finally. I'm not going back. You don't have a choice now. The moment you pull me out, you step back into it. He leaned forward, intense. But I can protect you. My people, my resources. I don't want protection. I want to be left alone. That ship sailed when Anton Drago's men saw your face. Anton Drago. The name sent ice through my veins. I knew that name too. A rival boss, vicious and calculating, with a reputation for tying up loose ends with brutal efficiency. This wasn't random, Joseph continued. Drago's been gunning for me for months. Territory disputes, shipment interference, the usual bullshit. But tonight was bold. Cutting my brake line, timing it for when I'd be alone on that stretch of road. His expression darkened. Someone on my inside fed him information. Someone close. Who? Before he could answer, the door burst open. A man in a sharp suit strode in, early 40s, military bearing, cold eyes. One of Joseph's guards stepped aside deferentially. Boss, we've got a problem. The man stopped when he saw me, face hardening. Who's this? Marco, this is Avis. She saved my life tonight. Joseph's voice was casual, but I caught the edge beneath it. Avis, my head of security, Marco Voss. Marco's jaw tightened as he looked me over, something calculating in his expression. We should talk. Privately. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of her. A muscle ticked in Marco's cheek. The shipment from the port. It's been compromised. Drago's people hit it an hour ago. Joseph went very still. How did they know the route? I don't know. But we've got a leak. Marco's hand drifted toward his jacket. And until we find it, no one's safe. Including civilians who should have minded their own business. His eyes locked on mine, cold and threatening. That's when I understood. The way he'd looked at me. The tension in his shoulders. The hand near his weapon. Marco was the leak. And I'd just become a witness to his treachery. Everything happened in seconds. Marco's hand moved toward his jacket. My body reacted before my brain caught up, muscle memory from a life I'd tried to forget. I lunged forward, grabbing the bedside tray and hurling it at Marco's head. Metal clattered. He ducked, but it bought me a heartbeat. Gun! I shouted. Marco's weapon cleared his jacket, barrel rising toward Joseph. The guards outside were moving but too slow, too far. Joseph tried to roll from the bed, for lines tangling. Marco's finger found the trigger. I slammed into him from the side, all my weight behind the impact. The gun discharged, deafening in the small room, the bullet punching into the ceiling tiles. We hit the floor hard, and I drove my elbow into his throat, a move my father had taught me when I was 16. Marco choked, gasping, and his grip loosened just enough for me to wrench the weapon away. The guards burst through the door, weapons drawn. Marco froze beneath me, hands spreading slowly. His cold eyes met mine and he smiled, actually smiled, even with my elbow pressed against his windpipe. Too late, he wheezed. Drago knows everything. Where you live. Who you are. He's already moving. My blood turned to ice. Joseph's voice cut through the chaos, deadly calm despite the chaos. Get him out of here. Take him to the warehouse. I'll deal with him later. The guards hauled Marco up, and Joseph's eyes were black with fury. Make sure he doesn't bleed out before I get there. As they dragged Marco away, still smiling that terrible smile, Joseph turned to me. We need to leave. Now. 15 minutes later, we were in an armored SUV racing through back streets, Joseph clutching his side where he'd torn stitches in the struggle, me in the passenger seat with my hands still shaking from adrenaline. Your place isn't safe, Joseph said, voice tight with pain. Drago will have people there within the hour. I don't have anywhere else to go. You do now. We ended up at a penthouse across town, one of Joseph's safe houses, he explained. Top floor, bulletproof windows, guards at every entrance. Luxurious in that cold, impersonal way that screamed money, but no home. Joseph collapsed onto the leather couch while a private doctor, summoned with one phone call, tended to his injuries. I stood by the window, watching the city lights blur through the rain starting to fall, feeling the walls of my carefully constructed normal life crumbling around me. You saved my life. Again. Joseph's voice came from behind me, rough with exhaustion and pain medication. I didn't turn around. Seems to be becoming a habit. Why? The question was genuine. You could have let Marco shoot me. Could have walked away. No one would have blamed you. I don't know. The honest answer. Instinct, maybe. Or stupidity. Or because you're not as far removed from that life as you want to believe. That made me turn. Joseph was watching me with those two knowing eyes, the doctor gone now, fresh bandages stark white against the skin. I got out, I said. 5 years clean. No contacts, no jobs, no ties to any crew. And in one night, you're back in deeper than ever. He leaned forward, wincing. Drago won't stop. He's been planning this for months, taking out my operations piece by piece, turning my own people against me. Marco was just the beginning. There'll be others. What does he want? Everything. My territory, my connections, my influence. He wants to be the only power in this city. Joseph's jaw clenched. And he'll burn it all down to get it. I sank into the chair across from him. So, what now? Now you stay here, where it's safe. My people will protect you until this is over. I don't need protection. I need to disappear. You think you can outrun Anton Drago? Joseph's laugh was bitter. He's got reach across 3 states. Money, connections, a network that spans. He stopped, studying my face. You're scared. Of course I'm scared. I pulled myself out of that world for a reason. I watched it destroy my father, consume everyone I knew. I swore I'd never. My voice broke. The silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, Joseph said quietly. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. But you're in it now, Avis. And the only way out is through. Through the rain-streaked window, the city glittered like broken glass. Somewhere out there, Drago's people were hunting us. Somewhere, Marco was being interrogated. Somewhere, a war was brewing that would paint these streets red. And I was trapped in the center of it, bound to a man I barely knew by the simple act of pulling him from the flames. Tell me everything, I said finally. If I'm going to survive this, I need to know what we're up against. Joseph nodded slowly. Then he began to talk, and with every word, I understood just how deep the water had become, and how unlikely it was that either of us would make it out alive. For 3 days, nothing happened. 3 days of living in Joseph's penthouse fortress, watching the city through bulletproof glass, jumping at every sound. 3 days of his guards rotating shifts, of encrypted phone calls and hushed voices, of Joseph coordinating his empire from the confines of the safe house while his wounds healed. 3 days of pretending we weren't sitting on a powder keg waiting for someone to light the fuse. I tried to settle into some kind of routine. Coffee in the morning. Reading news on my phone. Avoiding the fact that I couldn't go home, couldn't go to work, couldn't contact anyone from my old life without putting them in danger. The penthouse felt like a gilded cage, luxurious and suffocating in equal measure. Joseph was different here in his element. I watched him command his people with quiet authority, making decisions that affected hundreds of lives with the same ease most people chose breakfast. But in the quiet moments, late at night when the city slept and his guards changed shifts, I saw the weight he carried. The cost of the crown. You're staring, he said one night, catching me watching him from across the living room. Just trying to figure you out. Any luck? Not yet. I set down my coffee. How do you do it? Live like this, always looking over your shoulder, never knowing who to trust. He was quiet for a long moment. You get used to it. The paranoia becomes background noise. And you learn that trust is a luxury people like us can't afford. People like us. I tested the words. I'm not like you. Aren't you? His gaze was steady. You saw Marco going for his gun before my own guards did. You reacted without hesitation. That's not civilian instinct, Avis. I wanted to argue, but couldn't. The truth was, these 3 days had felt disturbingly familiar. The hypervigilance, the tactical thinking, the constant awareness of exits and weapons and threats. I'd slipped back into old patterns like putting on a worn jacket. Maybe I'd never really left at all. On the 4th morning, I woke to silence. Wrong silence, the kind that prickled the back of your neck and made your heart rate spike before you even knew why. I grabbed the knife Joseph had insisted I keep by the bedside and moved to the window. Dawn was just breaking, painting the street below in shades of gray and gold. That's when I saw them. 20 black SUVs lined the street like a funeral procession. Identical vehicles, tinted windows, engines idling. They blocked every exit, every escape route, arranged with military precision. Men in dark suits stood beside each vehicle, still as statues, waiting. My breath caught. Joseph. He appeared in seconds, weapon already drawn, moving to my side. His face went hard when he saw the street below. Drago, he said quietly. How did they find us? Does it matter? He was already moving, phone to his ear, barking orders. Get everyone up. Full defensive positions. No one gets in. Through the window, I watched a figure emerge from the center SUV. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a coat that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Even from 6 floors up, I could feel the menace radiating from him. Anton Drago. He looked up at the penthouse, and I swear he was looking directly at me. He smiled. Then he raised his hand. 20 car doors opened simultaneously. Armed men poured out like ants from a disturbed nest, taking positions, checking weapons, surrounding the building with practiced efficiency. We're trapped, I breathed.
No.
Joseph's voice was steel. We're fortified. There's a difference. He checked his weapon, face grim and determined. I'm done running. Done hiding. Drago wants a war? Let's give him one. Joseph, there are too many. I know. He turned to me, and something in his expression made my chest tighten. I need you to trust me.
Can you do that?
Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then his jaw clenched. What? I demanded. Drago's offering terms. He wants me to come down. Alone. Says if I surrender, he'll let everyone else live. Joseph's eyes were dark. Including you. You can't seriously be considering. I'm not. He moved to the window, looking down at the army surrounding us. But I'm also not letting him slaughter everyone in this building because of me. So, what's the plan? Joseph's smile was sharp and dangerous. We make him regret ever coming here. He started issuing orders, repositioning guards, checking ammunition, coordinating with his people in other parts of the city. I watched him transform from the wounded man I'd pulled from the flames into the Mafia boss who'd built an empire through blood and steel. And I realized, standing there with dawn breaking over a city about to become a battlefield, that my life would never be the same. That quiet existence I'd built, the normal life I'd fought for, it was gone. Burned away like smoke. All that remained was survival, and the terrifying certainty that I'd fight beside him, no matter the cost. The garage exit was supposed to be clear. Joseph's people had scouted it, confirmed the route, radioed the all clear. We descended 6 floors in the service elevator, Joseph's remaining guards flanking us, weapons drawn, tension thick enough to choke on. Armored cars waiting. One guard murmured into his radio. 30 seconds to the vehicle, then we punch through their line on the east side. They'll expect us to head north, so we go south. Take the elevator doors opened to gunfire. Muzzle flashes lit the concrete garage like lightning. The guard in front of me jerked backward. Blood sprang. Joseph yanked me down as bullets sparked off the elevator walls. They knew. I shouted over the chaos. They knew we'd come this way. Joseph's face was grim. The armored car sat 30 feet away, driver slumped over the wheel, windshield spiderwebbed with bullet holes. Drago's men advanced from behind concrete pillars, methodical and organized, cutting off our escape. We were trapped. Joseph returned fire, his remaining guards laying down covering shots, but there were too many. We needed a miracle, or... My eyes landed on a silver sedan parked near the exit ramp. Civilian vehicle, probably belonging to a resident. Keys likely inside, if we were lucky. There. I grabbed Joseph's arm, pointing. That's not armored. It's not surrounded either. Move. I broke from cover, sprinting across the open garage. Bullets chewed up the concrete behind me, ricocheting off pillars. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might explode. I reached the sedan, yanked the door, unlocked, thank God, and dove inside. Keys in the cup holder. Amateurs always left their keys. Joseph slid into the passenger seat, still firing behind us. You're insane. Yeah, well, you're welcome. I jammed the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. A guard threw himself into the back seat just as I slammed the accelerator. The sedan shot forward, tires screaming. Gunfire erupted behind us. The rear window exploded, glass raining down. I ducked instinctively, cranking the wheel hard. We burst from the garage into early morning sunlight. 3 of Drago's SUVs were already moving, engines gunning as they swung in pursuit. Hold on. I yanked the wheel, sliding the sedan through a red light. Horns blared. A delivery truck swerved, missing us by inches. The SUVs followed, relentless, black metal beasts that ate up the distance between us. Where'd you learn to drive like this? Joseph braced against the dashboard as I took a corner at 50. My father. The words tasted bitter. He said if you couldn't drive fast, you'd die slow. Gunfire erupted from the pursuing SUVs. Bullets punched through our trunk, shattered the side mirror. I jerked the wheel, weaving through morning traffic. We rocketed down a narrow side street, clipping a parked car, sparks flying. Left here. Joseph pointed. I cranked the wheel. We slid through the turn, the sedan's frame groaning. Behind us, one SUV tried to follow too fast and clipped a light post, spinning out. 2 remained. The chase became a blur, screeching tires, shattered glass, my knuckles white on the wheel. I drove like my father had taught me, like survival depended on every split-second decision. Through alleys too narrow for the SUVs. Wrong way down one-way streets. Across a plaza scattering pedestrians. Underground parking. Joseph shouted. 2 blocks ahead. I saw it, a multi-level garage, entrance wide open. I aimed for it, the sedan's engine screaming in protest. We plunged into darkness, tires squealing on the spiral ramp going down, into the belly of the structure. The SUVs followed, but their size worked against them. They scraped concrete, too wide for the tight turns. I pushed our advantage, taking corners faster, recklessly, until we hit the bottom level, and I killed the lights. In the sudden darkness, I navigated by memory and instinct, weaving between parked cars, putting distance and obstacles between us and pursuit. Finally, I pulled into a tight spot behind a concrete pillar and killed the engine. We sat in silence, breathing hard, listening. Somewhere above, engines roared. Tires squealed. Then, gradually, the sounds faded. I think we lost them, the guard in the back seat wheezed. Joseph turned to look at me, something like respect in his eyes. You saved us. Again. I couldn't speak. Adrenaline was crashing, my hands shaking so badly I had to grip the wheel to steady them. I just led a high-speed chase through downtown like it was second nature. Like I'd never left that life at all. Safe house is 2 miles from here, Joseph said quietly. We'll go on foot, stay in the shadows. We abandoned the destroyed sedan and moved through back alleys as the city woke up around us. An hour later, we reached a nondescript apartment building in a neighborhood that knew better than to ask questions. But as we climbed the stairs to the 3rd-floor unit, exhaustion and delayed terror giving way to cold calculation, one thought kept circling through my mind. They knew we'd use that garage. Knew which exit, which vehicle. Someone had told them. Someone close. And they were still out there, waiting for the next chance to finish what they'd started. The safe house lasted 4 hours before they found us. I heard them coming, boots on metal stairs, the whisper of weapons being drawn, the coordinated silence of professionals moving in for a kill. Joseph heard it too. Our eyes met across the dim apartment, and without a word, we were moving. Back exit, he mouthed, grabbing weapons from a hidden cache behind the refrigerator. He tossed me a gun. I caught it, checked the magazine by instinct, and followed him through the kitchen. We made it 3 blocks before the trap closed. They'd herded us like cattle, cutting off escape routes, forcing us toward the industrial district where abandoned warehouses loomed like concrete tombs. By the time we realized it, we were inside one. Rusted machinery casting twisted shadows, broken windows high above, letting in weak afternoon light. And we were surrounded. Drago's men emerged from behind equipment, from doorways, from the shadows themselves. 20, maybe 30 armed men, forming a loose circle that tightened with each step. In the center stood Anton Drago himself, silver hair immaculate despite the dust and decay, expensive coat unblemished. Next to him, bruised and bloodied but alive, stood Marco. Marco. Joseph's voice was flat, dead. I should have known. Marco's split lip twisted into something approximating a smile. Nothing personal, boss. Just business. Drago made a better offer. I trusted you. The pain in Joseph's voice cut deeper than any blade. 10 years, Marco. 10 years you stood at my back. And 10 years I watched you make decisions that weakened us. Compromises. Mercy. Marco spat blood onto the concrete floor. Drago understands what you never could. In this life, you're either predator or prey. There's no middle ground. Drago stepped forward, hands clasped casually behind his back. Joseph Lantz, you've been a thorn in my side for far too long. But I'm a reasonable man. Kneel. Swear loyalty to me, and I'll make your death quick. And the woman? Joseph's hand found mine, squeezed once. Collateral damage. She knows too much. Drago's cold eyes fixed on me. Though I admit I'm impressed. Twice you've saved his life. Avis Lovato. Your father would be proud. Or horrified. Hard to say. The name hung in the air like smoke. Recognition flickered across Drago's face, and suddenly I understood. My father's death 5 years ago, not a random territory dispute. Drago had ordered it. Had probably ordered Marco to pull the trigger. You killed him. The words tasted like ash. My father. You gave the order. Drago shrugged. He was in the way. Like you are now. Something snapped inside me. The fear, the doubt, the desperate hope that I could somehow escape back to my normal life. It all burned away, leaving only cold clarity. I'd been running for 5 years from a truth I'd always known. You couldn't escape this world. You could only choose which side you die on. I looked at Joseph, wounded, surrounded, facing the man who'd orchestrated his downfall. He was going to die here. We both were. Unless we fought like hell. I'm not running, I said quietly. Joseph's eyes widened. Avis. I'm not running, I repeated louder. I raised my weapon, chambering a round. Not from him. Not from this. Not anymore. Drago laughed, genuine amusement in the sound. Touching. Marco, kill them both. Marco's gun rose. Joseph moved first, faster than a wounded man should. His shot caught Marco in the shoulder, spinning him. Marco's return fire went wide, sparking off metal. Then chaos erupted, Drago's men opening fire, Joseph and I diving behind a rusted conveyor belt, bullets chewing through metal and concrete. Stay down, Joseph shouted, returning fire. But I was already moving, flanking left, using the machinery for cover. Years of training flooded back, angle of approach, sight lines, counting shots. I dropped 2 of Drago's men before they even saw me coming. Across the warehouse, Marco struggled to his feet, blood spreading across his shirt. He and Joseph locked eyes. Nothing personal, Marco repeated, raising his weapon. Joseph's shot took him in the chest.
Once. Twice.
Marco fell, the betrayer's death neither quick nor clean. He gasped, drowning in his own blood, eyes wide with shock that Joseph had been faster. Everything's personal, Joseph said coldly, standing over him. That's the difference between us. Then Drago's men were closing in, and the real fight began. The warehouse became a war zone. Gunfire echoed off concrete walls, muzzle flashes strobing in the dim light. I moved through the chaos like a ghost, my father's training guiding every step. Drop, roll, fire. Use cover. Never stay still. The muscle memory was there, buried but not forgotten, rising through 5 years of denial like a body surfacing from deep water. 2 of Drago's men went down. Then 3. Joseph fought with brutal efficiency despite his injuries, each shot precise and lethal. But there were too many. For every man we dropped, another appeared from the shadows. I reloaded behind a steel pillar, hands steady despite the adrenaline screaming through my veins. Across the warehouse, Joseph traded shots with a group near the loading dock. He was pinned down, running low on ammunition. I could see it in the way he conserved his shots, in the tightness of his shoulders. A figure moved in my peripheral vision. I spun, fired. The man dropped, weapon clattering across concrete. But the distraction cost me. Someone grabbed my arm from behind, yanking me off balance. I twisted, drove my elbow into soft tissue, heard a grunt of pain. The grip loosened. I spun with the gun, fired point-blank. The man crumpled. Enough! Drago's voice cut through the chaos. Cease fire. The shooting stopped. In the sudden silence, my ears rang. Bodies littered the warehouse floor. Most of them Drago's, but not all. Joseph's remaining guard lay motionless near the east entrance. Drago stood in the center of the killing floor, weapon drawn, calm as death itself. Behind him, 5 men remained, guns trained on us. Joseph emerged from cover, bleeding from a fresh wound on his arm. I moved to his side, weapon raised. We were outnumbered, outgunned, but still standing. Impressive, Drago said, genuine respect in his voice. You're better than I expected, Miss Lovato. Your father trained you well. He circled slowly, predator assessing prey. But it's over. You can't win. So I'll make you the same offer I made Joseph, Neil, and I'll make it quick. Go to hell, I said. Drago's smile was cold. Ladies first. His gun swung toward me. Joseph moved, putting himself between us. You want her, you go through me? Noble. Stupid, but noble. Drago's finger tightened on the trigger. Time slowed. I saw Joseph's body tensing, preparing to take the bullet meant for me. Saw Drago's cold eyes calculating the shot. Saw the other men adjusting their aim, ready to cut us both down. In that frozen moment, I understood. Joseph would die for me. He'd throw himself in front of that bullet without hesitation. This man I'd known for less than a week, this killer with blood on his hands who'd somehow become the only solid thing in my collapsing world. And I couldn't let that happen. I moved faster than thought, shoving Joseph sideways. His eyes widened. Avis, no. My weapon came up. Drago's head turned, surprise flickering across his features. Our eyes met for one heartbeat.
2.
I pulled the trigger. The shot caught him center mass. He staggered, shock replacing calculation. I fired again. And again. Emptying the magazine, each shot a nail in the coffin of the life I used to have. Drago fell, expensive coat spreading around him like a burial shroud, blood pooling on concrete that had seen too much death already. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then Drago's remaining men dropped their weapons. One by one, they backed away, melting into the shadows. In the Mafia world, the boss's death ended the war. No leader meant no orders. No orders meant survival instincts took over. The warehouse fell silent except for labored breathing, mine, Joseph's, the dying gasps of wounded men. I stared at the gun in my hands, at Drago's body, at the blood on my clothes that wasn't all mine. Avis. Joseph's voice was gentle. He touched my shoulder. It's over. But it wasn't over. I could feel it, the weight settling onto my shoulders, permanent and crushing. I'd killed Anton Drago. Shot him down in cold blood to save Joseph's life.
There was no going back from that.
No returning to waitress shifts and quiet anonymity. I'd crossed a line drawn in blood, and the woman who'd pulled Joseph from burning wreckage felt like a stranger now. I killed him, I whispered. You saved us. Saved me. Joseph's hands cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Avis, you saved me. Behind us, sirens wailed in the distance. Police, drawn by the gunfire. We needed to move, to disappear before questions we couldn't answer trapped us here. But I couldn't stop staring at my hands. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road that barely qualified as a path, surrounded by pine trees that whispered secrets to the wind. No neighbors for miles. No city lights bleeding into the darkness. Just silence, stars, and the ghost of who we used to be. We'd been here 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Joseph's wounds slowly healing, of sleepless nights and careful watch rotations, of learning to exist in the space between what we'd survived and what came next. The Mafia world had fractured in Drago's absence. Joseph's people reported daily. Territory disputes erupting, lieutenants scrambling for power, the careful balance he'd maintained for years collapsing into chaos. His empire was crumbling, brick by bloody brick. He didn't seem to care. I found him on the porch as dawn broke, coffee steaming in his hands, watching the forest emerge from shadow. The bandages were gone now, replaced by fresh scars that mapped the violence of our last 2 weeks together. He looked different here, quieter, more human. Less like the Mafia boss who'd commanded an empire, and more like a man learning to carry the weight of survival. Couldn't sleep? I asked, settling beside him. Haven't slept well since the car accident. He glanced at me, something soft in his expression. Except when you're nearby. Strange, isn't it? The woman who dragged me from the flames is the only thing that makes me feel safe. I had no response to that. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. I've been thinking, Joseph said finally, about what comes next. And I'm done with the life, the territory, the endless cycle of violence. He turned to face me fully. Drago's dead.
Marco's dead.
Half my organization is scattered or arrested. The smart move would be to rebuild, reassert control, remind everyone why they feared the name Joseph Lantz. But I'm tired, Avis. Tired of watching people I trust betray me. Tired of sleeping with a gun under my pillow. Tired of wondering which day will be my last. His hand found mine. You saved my life 3 times. Maybe that's the universe telling me I'm supposed to do something different with it. What would you do if you walked away? I don't know. Something quiet. Something that doesn't end in blood. He smiled, weary but genuine.
What about you?
Still want that normal life you were building. I looked at my hands, scarred now, marked by broken glass and gunfire and violence I could never unsee. The waitress who'd existed 2 weeks ago felt like a dream, someone I'd invented to hide from uncomfortable truths. I don't think normal is possible anymore, I admitted. Every time I close my eyes, I see Drago falling. Feel the gun's recoil. I killed a man, Joseph. Killed him to save you, and I can't regret it. What does that make me?
Human. Loyal.
Someone who protects the people she cares about. He squeezed my hand. You're not just the woman who saved my life, Avis. You're my partner, my protector, the only person in this world I trust completely. The confession hung between us, heavy with implications. Partnership in his world meant something deeper than friendship, more binding than blood. It meant standing together against whatever came next. My past won't let me go, I said quietly. The court of a crew, my father's death, the life I ran from. It'll follow me. People like us don't get happy endings. Maybe not. Joseph stood, pulling me up with him. But we get mornings like this. We get to choose what comes next instead of having it chosen for us. That's more than most people in our world ever get. He was right. We'd survived when we shouldn't have. Found each other in flames and blood and chaos. Whatever came next, whether peace or more violence, redemption or damnation, we'd face it together. Behind us, the cabin door hung open, a shelter we'd carved from the wreckage of our lives. Ahead, the forest stretched endlessly, full of possibilities and dangers we couldn't yet name. I looked at Joseph, scarred, dangerous, mine in ways I was still learning to understand, and made my choice. Then let's choose, I said. He smiled, pulling me close. Together? Together. The city was behind us, but its shadows would always remain, lurking at the edges of whatever future we built. My father's ghost. Joseph's empire. The bodies we'd left in our wake. But for now, standing in the morning light with his arms around me, I let myself believe in the possibility of something more. Survival. Loyalty.
Love.
And the fierce determination to fight for every moment we'd clawed from the jaws of death. The road ahead was uncertain, dangerous, probably short. But it was ours. And that would have to be enough.